And we're back with me, Johnny McMurray, on the On The Spot Football Podcast for yet another fantastic guest. Tonight's guest is the first female in a long line of hopefully females to come on the podcast. She's been a player, she's been a broadcaster, a presenter, a host. She's absolutely everything to do with the media, and it's my pleasure to have her on. It's Mrs. Nicola McCarthy.
Thank you very much.
Nicola, how are you?
I am very well. Thank you very much for having me on and asking me to be here.
No, thank you
it's
for
different
coming.
for me. I'm usually in your seat.
We've swapped roles. It's good. We'll take you through hopefully what's been a fantastic career, and obviously talk about one of the most interesting side of things to me, which is the media, which you are heavily involved in at the minute.
No,
How's
pleasure.
things?
Good to be here. Yeah, good. Busy.
Good.
Busy with work and home, as you know, as well. So all around busy, but can't complain at all. When you love what you do and you enjoy it, as you know, it's half the battle. So can't complain at all. It's good.
As you've talked about there, it is sort of roles reversed for you. You're usually the one leading these seminars, these hosted sessions.
Anything you're going to ask me at all.
You don't, and do you know what? Neither do I. It's a blank slate, so it's whatever happens. And if we need to cut it out, we'll cut it out. But listen, again, thank you so much. But I want to be cautious of your time. I want to dive right into things. We've spoken numerous times back and forward about women's football and the ladies who are obviously excelling at the minute, which is incredible for the Irish League and the women's side of things. But talk me through your perspective on it. How big do you think it's getting? You're a big advocate for it, and obviously we're able to have these conversations online, but it's incredible to me.
It is, it's growing. It's grown a lot in the last number of years, as you know, Johnny. It's probably got a way to go as well. But I think the growth we've seen in the past number of years has been really remarkable. It's something that we've seen in England, in recent years as well. We've seen it in America before that. And it's just great to see that, it really is taking off here. I think the number of girls playing is great. The academies are full from, people I speak to. There's just the appetite's huge for women's and girls football. And I think it probably always was, Johnny, in a way. Yeah. But the opportunities just weren't there. The academies weren't there. The teams just weren't there. So if you were a young girl playing football in Northern Ireland, you had to play with the boys, really, which was my experience growing up. But it's just great to see now that if you're a young girl wanting to play or playing football in Northern Ireland, that you've got the opportunities to do that, to express yourself, to go and enjoy it. And if you're good enough and if it's what you want, then to maybe look at opportunities further afield. Yeah. So the growth's great. Like I say, there's a way to go, to support that, like anything. I think facilities are a big thing, and obviously people getting behind, young girls and women playing sport. But listen, the growth's been great. Like I say, the appetite's definitely there. And to see then from grassroots up to the national team, and to see, Northern Ireland doing so well, obviously the first major tournament at the Euros in 2022, and just the team doing well as well in their own individual careers across the Irish League and further afield as well. There's a number of girls obviously playing in England, playing in America, and then you've a good local crop of players as well. Yeah. So to see that is brilliant. And I think actually what I've realised really quite recently is that when you have the role models coming through now that are maybe coming to the end of their career, the likes of Marissa Callaghan, Julie Nelson, Ashley Hutton, girls who have been there and done it, we now have those as almost ambassadors. Yeah. And I think that's really important, because I think the men's game has had that for such a long time. And even in England, that doesn't just apply to here. When I started at Man City, I'm sure we'll go on to talk about it, but when I started at Man City, the women's team wasn't officially part of the club. Okay. So there was a Man City women. It wasn't an official part of the club. So they became officially part of the club in 2014. So that's not that long ago. Do you know what I mean? And again, you have the likes of Karen Bardsley, Jill Scott, Steph Houghton, Izzy Christensen, all these girls that are now, we see them in media, we see them commentating, reporting, punditry. And I think to see that is really, really important. And that's what we have now as well. And those girls that are coming to the end, Marissa obviously announcing her retirement in recent weeks, for example, having them around and keeping them around is very, very important to keep that momentum going and to have that experience that probably the women's games lacked, just because the facilities and things weren't there to kind of nurture that.
Do you think that because of the success of Northern Ireland at the minute, a lot of girls are now making the move to England, as you've touched on there? But you're now seeing a lot of Irish League girls, the crop that we have that are very good, and to kind of give them a shout out here, but the majority of the team is playing in the Irish League, which shows that the quality of the league. I know there's maybe 2 or 3, 4 teams that are really competing really strong, like the Glentorns, the Cliftonvilles every year. I guess that's the way the league is because of the amount of quality that you have in that small group, but especially for young kids growing up, young girls who want to aspire to be professional footballers and get that move, you're now seeing a lot of girls making the move. That has to be something that's the best way to promote football in Northern Ireland. Their ambitions are going to be so much higher because they realise that there's a pathway now.
Absolutely. I think that is just vital. It's key. It's something that, my age group, I'll tell you how old I am.
Well, I'm never going into that. Never going into it.
But something that, funny, I played, here. I started off in the boys' team at primary school, and then I went to Belfast United Women, which is now Glentoran Women.
Okay.
So, there were options, but they were limited. But, if you wanted to find them, you found them. And then went on to play for Cliftonville and Northland Raiders in between that. But anyway, I suppose my point is we did have a group of girls playing that we would play against, but it was quite small, and it just wasn't as big as it is now. Yeah. And the height of what you could achieve was probably that, which was fine. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, we had great days, and we all still get together and sit around a table, tell the same stories, laugh just as hard. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like we have that. We do have a bit of a community, I suppose, if you like. But now, as you say, the girls can see that it's a career if you want it to be a career. It's an option, whereas it wasn't for us. So we joke we were born too soon.
Right, okay.
We were born too soon. But no, it genuinely is a career option now, which is massively exciting, because I can only imagine how myself and other girls would have felt at that age if we thought that we could play professional football, which really genuinely was what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
But the opportunities, the pathway wasn't there. So the pathway is there now, and I think whether you stay and play your football in the Women's Irish Premiership or any tier of football here, or you choose to go across the water to England, or maybe even further afield to America or anywhere else in Europe, to think that that's a possibility is just massively exciting. Like I say, it wasn't there before, it's there now, and I think we really need to just celebrate that. Again, probably coming back to the Irish, Premiership setup, and there's a lot of the girls, you mentioned the girls at Glentoran, Cliftonville playing, international football. Mm-hmm. So you can,
can still do it. You
still do that, play your football here and play internationally. And there's equally a number of girls in England, playing again in America, who are also playing, for Northern Ireland and representing, whilst playing away. So, it comes down to a number of things, as what route, the girls will take. But to know that there are options for both, mm-hmm. I think is great just for the girls coming through. And some of the young girls coming through are
brilliant.
Really fantastic. The training they're getting, the support they're getting. Again, when you've coaches around that know the game really well, the likes of Gail Redmond at the IFA, huge, advocate of women's football, played the game, reads the game really well. You've people like that around as well. You're in safe hands, and that you can aspire to be whatever you want to be. Obviously, Tanya looks to be, is a great coach as well. Tanya's got experience in England with Chelsea Women. She's been in and around the game, and she knows it well. So when you have people like that around and nurturing, the young players as well, I think the only way is up, really.
It certainly does help, especially having people who are kind of from that professional background, trying to imitate it and bring little Northern Ireland forward. Well, we're still 10 years behind, as you've touched on, but it's good to see it's getting there.
Yeah, no, totally.
One of the things I want to talk to you about, and you touched on there, was how times have changed.
Yeah.
Because I certainly remember as a young boy playing in 11v11 games, full-size pitch at like 10. And there was always one or two girls, because it was never small-sided games at that stage. Things have obviously drastically changed over the years in terms of implementing new plans and new rules for kids to get used to pitches and different things like that. But there was always one or two girls, and I'm not just saying this to be throwing that out there, but they were usually a lot better than the boys. Technically at that stage, I think it was more, we were trying to be more physical and type things like that, whereas girls probably knew the game a wee bit better than what we did. But what was that like, being a part of that? Obviously things have changed now, and you probably look back on it and you're seeing kids playing football and it's just girls on girls, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But you kind of call it and that. It
was interesting because I think at that time, certainly I can only speak from my own personal experience, I just loved football from I can remember. And my mum was a champion Irish dancer, had her own Irish dance school, adjudicator, still adjudicates at times. Okay. So a big Irish dancing career. And I was the great right hope. Johnny, as you understand.
I'm thinking there, what happened?
Exactly.
You went for studs and shin guards. you could have had the nice, like, flamboyant dresses there.
Exactly, yeah. And I don't know, why is that? I don't know. I have no idea. I did have an older brother, and who I grew up with and I'm very close to. But I don't know. I just had this innate love for football. Okay. And I just wanted to play football all the time. So my mum was actually school secretary at my primary school. And I don't know if that kind of helped, give me a little bit of, I can, muck in with the boys. I don't know. But I just love football. I just wanted to play. And the only option for me to do that was to go into the playground and play with the boys. And I did that from, I think, maybe P4, P5, P6, 7, and then ended up playing in the boys' team. And interestingly, it was a female coach. Our P16 sure, Mrs. McConkie was the coach of the football team, which in itself
for them was quite
we're talking like strange, mid 90s. Yeah, like a female coach even at the side of the pitch was not the norm, really. So we had Mrs. McConkie, and maybe that played into it as well.
Yeah,
I don't know, but I played in the boys' team. I absolutely loved it. I mostly. It was fine, and the boys were very supportive, and it was all good. I did get the odd bit of stick,
okay.
I did get the odd bit of stick, mostly from opposition, players, because it wasn't the done thing really. But I just loved it, and I look back and think, gosh, that was quite unique. It was quite different.
Absolutely.
Do you know, I couldn't get changed in the changing rooms, for example, obviously. So I got changed in the back of Ms. McConkie's car, because that was just
90s kids.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there were no female changing rooms, so it wasn't like, but I didn't care. I just loved it. And I loved being on that pitch. I just loved playing football. And interesting, you should say, probably thought about it quite tactically as well. Mm-hmm. I played on the wing, so I was always, trying to use speed, and maybe a little bit of skill to kind of, break away and do what I could. But, it was, looking back now, I think, oh my goodness, that was quite unique. But I think it gave me a brilliant grounding. I think it gave me a really good grounding, both in football, and just in life. I think, it develops skills that, I suppose you have to become quite robust, because if you want to do what you want to do, you've got to take what comes with that. And that is a bit of stick, and that is a bit of what is a girl doing play football. That is being called Nicholas instead of Nicola. Okay. You've got to take a bit of slack.
Yeah.
But I never really let it get to me. And I had an older brother too, and which maybe helped. I don't know. But I just loved it. We had a great team. We had a really good primary school team. There was a couple of boys in that team were excellent. A couple of boys went on trial at Leeds, I remember. I still remember their names. I could probably name you that team, actually. But anyway, really good team. And like I say, as a team, they really embraced me. And I still remember the kit. It was a sky blue kit. Sky blue.
Sky blue. And I'll talk about them.
Sky blue, I'll talk about them. I'll leave that one. But yeah, it was a sky blue kit. I loved it. And I think that's one of the things I love. I loved the game, but I loved everything about it. I loved the culture of football. You know, I loved the kits. I loved, you know, the kind of music influence. You know, I loved all that kind of vibe. So yeah. I just loved it and still do. So to have that opportunity at that age was really quite great. But the problem was when I left primary school, there was nowhere to go.
Yeah, well, this is what we were going to
you know what I mean?
Yes. How do you continue to stay on that trajectory of wanting to do that when you're very limited?
Very limited. At that stage, very limited. But just very briefly, when I went to secondary school, then Our Lady in St Patrick's Knock, there was no girls football team. So I felt lost.
Yeah.
I'd come from playing in the playground every day at school, playing for the boys team, and to literally going, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So anyway, I started, a teacher, Dominic Keeley. I met him a few weeks ago, actually at an event, and I said, my goodness, Mr. Keeley, thank you so much for Fridays after school.
Yeah.
Because I lived for a Friday after school, because that was my opportunity to play football. He started like a girls, basically five-a-side, kind of, you know, just everybody in the school hall. And I made some great friends there, still friends to this day. And that's where I realised that there were some teams out there that I could look at, and that was Belfast United ladies. A girl called Claire Ray, great footballer. She said to me, why don't you come up to Cherryvale? And, you know, but, you had no mobile phone in those days.
You just had the...
Or Facebook, or...
Put your trust in people, didn't you?
You put your trust in people.
Yeah.
And I asked my dad, would he bring me up to Cherryvale one night? And away I went with Kelly Bailey. Actually, we started around the same time. Kelly has just finished her 29th season.
Yeah, I've just seen that.
Did you see that?
Insane.
She's a wonderful girl.
Yeah.
And I started around the same time. So my dad would take us up to Cherryvale one week and her granda would take us the other. And we did that for a long time. And Cheryl Lamont and Maura Muldoon were the coaches. And I remember just this feeling of, you know, training under lights and two female coaches and Claire Ray, who told me about the team, was there, and a number of other girls. And it was just amazing. It just felt amazing to have that opportunity. Belfast United then went on to become Glentoran. So just to have that release, I suppose, for, you know, what I wanted to do. I think I was maybe second year at this stage at school. And to have those girls around me, you felt like, you know, this was your kind of tribe.
Yeah, that was your community now.
Yeah, that was your community. And it was just fantastic. Great days. How we managed to get... Well, I was from Newton Ards, Kelly was from Cumbra. I don't know, like, the logistics of how we actually ended up getting ourselves to Cherryvale. I'd love to actually know on reflection. But great days. They really were fantastic. And then from there, teams started to form. Then, you know, they started to kind of spring up.
Yeah.
And one sprung up in, we trained in Newton Ards.
Okay.
A team called Northland Raiders, formed by a husband and wife from Hollywood, Stephen and Kim Funston. They started a team that was closer to home for me, so all of a sudden I was able to very easily.
You weren't relying on the lifts every Tuesday.
Exactly, the trips up to Belfast, maybe, you know, once or twice a week. So then I played for Northland for maybe 7 or 8 years, and then they unfortunately folded. But we had a great team. We had a really, really good team. When you start a new team, I'm sure it's the same in the men's, I think it is, you have to start in the lowest division and work your way up. We did that. We started 4-3-2-1. We worked our way up, and, you know, we had a really super team and a great group of girls. And then from then, I went on to play at Cliftonville for a few seasons before moving to Manchester for work. Not to play for Manchester City.
Unfortunately.
Did train with them, but by that stage I was focused on the media side, you know.
So your move to Cliftonville happens. Mm-hmm. Cliftonville are obviously a well-renowned Irish League club, especially when the men's side. Now the ladies' side is supremely dominant in the last couple of years. It's probably one of the best things. I think Brendan Lynch is still the manager there. He's a great fella.
Yeah, great guy.
Anyone who watches this, Cliftonville fans would know about his dad, who was the old physio, and great people. But in terms of you making that move there, were you at that level where they were probably in the Premiership and you were more than happy to slot in, as you've touched on there, like Marissa Callaghan was probably there from day one, and you probably had conversations, and you probably known these people from.
Well, that was it. Yeah, it was kind of a case of because Northland Raiders had folded, and we'd a lot of the girls went to Linfield, which was kind of just forming at that stage with one of our coaches, Neil, who's still there, great guy as well. So a lot of the girls kind of just were looking for a team, really. Yeah. It just so happened that I knew a few girls playing at Cliftonville, and they said to me, just come along, and
makes it easier.
Exactly, just makes it easier when you know a few people. There was a couple of us from Northland went then, and we thought we'll just go and give it a go. And we went along, and I'll never forget one of my first training sessions was it was at a school, and it was like a Tuesday night or something. It was like the depths of winter, and just getting onto the pitch, and I played in the wing, and Marissa played in the wing, she played in the left, I played in the right. Well, I actually did play in the left, so.
You had it.
Yeah. Okay. I had to concede that one.
Okay. Had to change it up.
Change it up. I was ready for a change now. And I remember Marissa, and I knew of her obviously playing against her, but I didn't really know. And by the way, Johnny, there were some brilliant girls in this league. Even my whole time at Northland, you knew like there was a group of players. We didn't have an international team for about 5 or 6 years. So those of us who were kind of international, in the mix, around and about, I want to say 1990, 2000, roughly. The senior team ceased to exist for about 5 years. I don't know. I think there was, it was an attempt really to grow the kind of youth and bring them up, but we didn't have a senior team basically for about 5 years. So that kind of left a bit of a gap for a lot of girls, but some really, really talented girls around that time. The senior team came back in 2005. So by this time that I'm at Cliftonville, I think around about 2008, 9-ish, the senior team was back. So, the girls were having senior international opportunities, which was brilliant. And I remember that night going on and playing. It's just like 5-a-side at a school. It wasn't the 11-a-side. And just like watching Marissa and just being blown away by her, to be honest with you. Just her reading of the game, her first touch, just her kind of leadership as well on the pitch. And I remember thinking, my gosh, she is good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just had that. But I did, again, throughout my playing days, I had that with a number of people. I went on to play with Cliftonville for a couple of years. But again, at that time, they weren't, really closely involved with the club. Like they are now, which is amazing to see. As you say, Brandy's a brilliant guy. But that, again, is quite recent history where, the clubs are getting behind and bringing the girls on and investing in them. And, we're seeing, the fruits of that now, which is great. But the likes of, as I mentioned, Julie Nelson playing at Crusaders, Ashley Hutton at Linfield, who went from Northland to Linfield. Kimberly Turner, now going to a women manager. Players, Helen McKenna. Listen, I could go on. I'm probably forgetting a number of girls, but there was a brilliant group of players around that time, and they were then playing senior international football. So it was great to play with the likes of Marissa and play against the likes of Julie, and they were great days, and great players. And then to see them go on and achieve what they've achieved with their clubs, say Julie at the Cruise, Marissa at Cliftonville, Ash at Linfield, and then go on to, the Euros together in 2022. It was, really just amazing for them. I just think for them as players, what they've given to the sport, they were the girls in the boys team at primary school. They were the girls, having to wear the men's jerseys and, pay your own way to go to tournaments and things. And just to see them get that, experience that, sports towards the end of their careers was just really, really lovely.
We talked about just before the podcast started how you had kind of made a short stint in America. You made a wee bit of a switch. You got to go out there and experience. Was it Louisiana?
Yeah, Louisiana.
What was that?
Which I didn't even know where it was in the map whenever I got the letter. I was expecting, like Florida.
Somewhere nice, hot, really warm.
It's like Louisiana, what? Where? But goodness, I had the best time. And at that stage, I was playing for Northland Raiders, actually. Okay. And actually I remember feeling really emotional leaving, and I still have. I used to wear number 11, and I was a massive Ryan Giggs fan growing up. So when I was 11 was my number. Anyway, I remember when I went off to America, all the girls signed my shirt, from Northland, and I had it above my bed in America then, because again, I think Johnny comes back to the kind of people we are. It's like anything in life that is good. It's the people, really, isn't it, that make it?
Absolutely.
And I think that's the lovely thing about football. I think that's the lovely thing about sport. And I know you'll have experienced that yourself when you have a group of people. But anyway, I remember going off to America, and I actually went on a business scholarship. I didn't go to play football, but I was able to, which was part of my, wanting to go really as well. And I went on to Louisiana, and I think as a young woman, certainly then, and I don't think so much now, I hope not so much now, I think you go through a very awkward stage in your kind of late teens where, particularly at that time, it wasn't really cool to be playing, it wasn't the done thing really to be playing football. So I think I personally probably got a little bit embarrassed about saying, oh, I play football, and it maybe was deemed, maybe just not the done thing. But although I was very proud of it, don't get me wrong, and, I had a great team and things like that. But when I went to America, and I went to a college called Centenary College in northern Louisiana, literally in the middle of nowhere. But a really good college, a small liberal arts college, but like a top tier sporting team. So the colleges are tiered in the States, and it was a top tier. I think they call it level 1.
Like D1 or
D1. Yeah, D1. Yeah, exactly. So I knew this was going to be a good, sporting school. So I went along, and it just blew me away. Yeah. It's fabulous. And what I really remember, it was the feeling of it. And these girls were so proud, it's just so proud to like be an athlete and play their sport. And it was a real badge of honor. And I remember thinking, my goodness, it's really refreshing to kind of feel like this. Yeah. So I joined the team there. In the Louisiana heat, which is a heat like no other. The humidity and the heat. So we trained very early in the morning, and then had a break and maybe did something then in the evening. But yeah, everything was provided for. All your like gear was there. The girls were kind of sponsored individually, which happens with a lot of American athletes. So people willing to sponsor you for, some kit or some boots or, trips or tournaments or whatever it was. But, it was a great year. Now I have to say I was at Queen's University at that time in Belfast, and I played for Queen's University my whole time when I was there. And it was another amazing experience. Yeah. And again, you found that group of girls who had come through where you'd come through, in terms of clubs, and you had that wee kind of, footballing union, as it were, at Queen's, and it was a great experience, and Queen's were very good to us, and we played at British University games, we played at European University games, we got great experiences. Jerry Flynn was actually our coach, believe it or not, at that time. And
what a character Jerry is.
It was. It was good crack. We had good times. I think by that age you're a bit more sure of yourself as well. You've gone to university, and you've kind of come through those maybe potentially awkward years. I had that year in America where, like I say, it was a real badge of honor to play the sport. It was a real kind of, it just felt great. It was very refreshing, and I think maybe I'd come back with that as well. And it was just a great time to go out there and experience. And at the time in the States, it was 2003-04, I was there, and the Women's World Cup was taking place that year in America, 2003. So the whole kind of World Cup fever was there.
The atmosphere around.
It was, exactly. And we didn't quite have that yet, Johnny. We didn't have that at that stage. We didn't have that in England at that stage, really. So it was great. The days of Mia Hamm and players like that. So it was just great. So to have that experience in the States and, to get a bit of that, it was, like I said, I think I came home with a bit of a, refreshed kind of like, ready to go again. Yeah, exactly. So, it was a great experience, and, something I'm very grateful for. I did have the opportunity to stay on, but I was just about to finish my last year at Queen's, and, I probably was a bit of a homebird at heart, really, as well. So I came home and played for Queen's and club as well. So, but a great experience out there. And like I say, at a time when football there was really on the up. I mean, women's soccer was much bigger than even else. you know.
And it always probably will be, I think, in terms of where they're at. They've kind of pushed it along a lot earlier, haven't they? And
True.
They're kind of reaping the benefits of it now. I think they're just trying to catch up the men's side more. So
yeah, that's true.
It's
yeah,
kind of like the opposite, where nobody really wanted to go out to the States because it was like I wouldn't say like a retirement home.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like they kind of done that.
Latter stages, kind of.
English players would have went to get a few quid and finish off their time, and I'm sure it's fantastic to be in Florida.
Yeah,
air football when you're 34 in the next heat and enjoying it.
Sign me up.
I know, absolutely. When you were out there, though, we did touch on there, you kind of started to think about media. You were delving in and out of different, I think it was a radio show or doing pieces on the radio. And how early did you realise that being in the media was potentially something that you wanted to do? Obviously, you're out there for business.
Yeah.
But what made you kind of start that or think about potentially being involved in the media?
I think it was that kind of introduction to college radio when I was out there. I had a couple of friends working in the college radio, and like I say, it was a massive sports college. So we had a big basketball team, male and female, baseball, softball, soccer. So it was a big sporting school. So there was loads to talk about in terms of that side of it, in terms of the sporting side, and then just the kind of American media landscape, you know, it is very different as well. And again, probably ahead of where we were at in terms of media. So I'd done bits and pieces, you know, of media before. I went out to the States, but it was really when I went out there and realised I wasn't going to be a professional footballer. Okay. Getting too old. That ship has sailed. No, it was that kind of, you know, if I can't be a professional footballer, which I would have genuinely loved to have been or had a crack at, media is the next best thing almost, you know. And I think I realised that when I was in America. Like I said, a couple of friends working in college radio, and they said to me, why don't you come in and, you know, just see what we do and see if there's anything. I love people, Joey. I love people.
No, I know.
Do you know? And I love stories and I love just connection with. So, you know, I'd gotten to know a few people really, and they just said, come in and, you know, have a bit of crack and see what we do. And I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. Just getting people in. Mostly I would focus on the sports side with a bit of music as well, but I would focus on the sports. So I did a little sports show, kind of like what we're doing now. Just get different athletes in, talk about their stories, how they got to where they got to, what they loved about their sport, and really kind of just trying to find out, you know, more about the sporting landscape in America, which is huge, obviously, and massively interesting, and the media side as well, which again is huge and massively interesting. And I think actually sport and media have so many crossovers. You know, I think there's so many links between both. And I think I realised that then, and I thought, you know what, actually it'd be great if I could maybe start to map out a career in sports media. So that's really what I did. I loved that show. I just loved it. Like, you know,
that was your first.
Yeah, that was my first really insight, you know, and an opportunity, I suppose. Again, it all kind of comes down to opportunities. And at that stage, you know, we didn't have, you know, podcasts or anything yet or things. So the kind of traditional college radio was the way to go. But I just got a bit of a bug for it. And I just thought, yeah, this will be a good, fun career to kind of merge the sports and the media together and see where it goes. So yeah, that's what I did, with a wee bit of music thrown in as well, which was always a nice, always a good wee touch. Yeah, and always I love music as well. So to have that as well was nice. Get the guests to choose a few tunes and things like that.
Maybe that's something that we need to do now.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but I don't know. You got to learn from people, eh?
That's it, exactly. You take that wee nugget.
So see, whenever you're over there and you've just started this and you've been there for a year, so you've kind of touched on the fact that you knew you were going out for maybe a short period of time. You always wanted to maybe come back, bit of a home bird, and you just started up this show, which was something that you really wanted to continue. Yeah. How daunting is it coming back knowing that you're kind of in a position where you don't have any real ties or interest in the media back home? Yeah. And how do you then forward yourself and get yourself started, or get yourselves in the circles of people who are going to potentially give you a crack at being in the media at home? It's
literally just knocking on doors, really. It was, I think at that stage it was it was an idea for me. Do you know what I mean? It was you know, where are my skills best suited, I suppose, was my kind of approach to it. And then when I got that little taste in America, as you say, come home, you think, well, how do I continue that? So I just started looking for opportunities. I still played football, you know, so I still continued to play, which was, you know, a very valuable part of it as well, you know, just playing the game and speaking to people in and around the game, getting to know people, and then just trying to get any opportunities going, like, you know, standing at the side of a pitch, just doing whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things where I think, you know, the more people you talk to and share your ideas with and share the fact that you're interested, you know, it just grows. But I always had this thing that I wanted to work in football, as in the media side. You know, I always had a bit of an itch to go, right, well, again, if I can't be a footballer, you know, I'd love an opportunity at some point to work in football media. So I really kind of just set that as a goal, Johnny, really, and just tried to work towards that. I went on to do a master's in journalism at University of Ulster after my degree at Queen's. And that, you know, obviously gave me the tools, you know, kind of strengthened that a bit. But you know, it wasn't easy as well. You know, it wasn't easy to, you know, to find those opportunities. You really had to create them for yourself. You know, you had to go out there and, like I say, speak to people and make some opportunities happen and create some of your own content. And like I say, it wasn't kind of podcasts and that at that stage. It was just bring your
document yourself on the phone anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Pen and paper, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was pen and paper, maybe a bit of a mini disc if you were lucky.
A wee Walkman.
Maybe a mini disc, a Walkman, and maybe record the odd thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it really was that kind of, you know, era. And then I was lucky enough to get an opportunity with UTV on the kind of back end of my masters. And from there, again, I wasn't at, you know, 100% in sport. I was doing a bit of news as well, but I just knew I wanted to work in sport, and I just knew I had to keep hammering the door and just try to make it happen. So yeah, I worked here for maybe 4 or 5 years, I would say, just trying to do as much as possible, like any kind of sport related content I could get involved in. I did. And then, yeah, just kept the head down, kept working hard, and eventually got the chance then at Manchester City to actually go and work in football media.
Full time.
Yeah, be full time. Yeah.
So what's that like though? Because at the time when you make that move to City, we've spoke about this numerous times, because it's, I wouldn't say you were brought in on the big money, but you were brought in at a time when
I certainly wasn't, but
a lot of people were on huge money, but
yeah.
City were on that transition where they were just bought over.
Yeah.
And you were kind of just nipped in the first season, sort of they had been in and around that crossover period. So you've came in probably at the most ideal stage, because you see the influx of money, the players that ended up becoming part of that Premiership season the very first time they maybe started splashing the cash.
Yeah.
It must have been ridiculously exciting.
It really was. And
well, first of all, before you go any further, how does that job come around? Is this just an application process and you've seen that City are offering this media job up and you've applied for it, or did you know somebody in a position where they could potentially help you and put you forward? Or
yeah, I literally saw the job in the Guardian newspaper when I was at Cool FM working one day.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought, oh goodness, but you know, full transparency here, I am a Manchester United fan.
Okay. Okay.
So I saw it and quickly thought, yes, that would be amazing. City are doing amazing
Don't want to
things.
sell my soul now.
But yeah, you know, this is this is someone who grew up, you know, as a massive Red.
Yeah.
You know, the treble in '99 being one of my, you know, most memorable moments of life. So, you know, I did question whether or not this would be a precarious move, but no, I did see the job in the Guardian newspaper, and I thought, my goodness, that would be, you know, be a great job. So I knew I knew a guy from home who was working at Man City in the marketing department.
Okay.
And I rang him and I said, listen, I've seen this job. What do you think? And he said, yeah, absolutely. He said, 100% go for it. And I thought, yeah, okay, maybe just give it a go. But to be honest with you, Johnny, I applied for it and I wasn't thinking in any way I'm going to get it and move across and everything that came after. I just kind of applied for it and thought, we'll see what happens. So anyway, I then went over for the interview and I'll never forget, it was at the Etihad in one of the corporate boxes. And there was like a panel of 4 people. And I'm there going, my goodness, like, what am I doing? Yeah. Just looking onto the pitch, saying, right, okay. I had to put together a presentation and deliver a presentation and then obviously go through like the interview process. And I just remember thinking, my gosh, like, this is huge. This is really huge. And even to get the interview experience, it felt massive. And as you say, at a time when City were going through a huge transition, that the owners and new owners had just come in and they were starting to, build something really quite special. So it was very exciting. So yeah, I did the interview and there was, like I say, a panel of 4. There was one woman on the interview panel, a lady called Vicky Claus, who was the head of communications at the time. Fabulous woman. And I remember she said to me, okay, Nicola, so do you know Manchester at all? Because I'm thinking, this girl from Belfast, what is her interest?
Yeah, no, why are you here?
Yeah, why are you here? Yeah. And I said, yeah, I do. I know it. Yeah. I know it quite well. And she said, right, because I was still playing football at this stage. And she said, from football? And I said, yeah, from football, yeah. And she's like, okay, so you've played a career. And I said, no. I said, no, I don't know. I don't really play in Manchester, but I visit for football. She went, oh, right, okay.
Didn't specify which club. But she knew.
Yeah, she knew. And she said, I'll never forget what she said. She said, listen, I bleed blue. She was like, I bleed blue, but my husband's a red. And she said, don't worry too much about it. And I thought, my goodness, like it just felt at that point, it was such a big deal, I certainly felt for a United fan. It was a forward-facing role at City TV. But honestly, Johnny, I had the best time. And I think, like anything in life that is good, you maybe feel like you don't appreciate it as much at the time.
Yeah.
And you look back and you think, oh my goodness, what a wonderful, wonderful time. It was hugely exciting. You'd Sergio Aguero, Carlos Tevez, obviously he'd made the switch.
Yeah.
You had Joe Hart, you had, James Milner, you had a great group of players, some exceptional talent, Samir Nasri, who I still think is one of the greatest talents who didn't quite, so that's another podcast, but, you were watching week in, week out, the best players in the Premier League, and the best, obviously, opposition, Premier League, Champions League, pre-season tours, post-season tours, and just surrounded by great people as well. And I think, like we mentioned before, it's always the people, that make it, isn't it? We, at City TV, we're just such a brilliant team of people. I suppose we were probably all at a similar time in our lives. Man City were very good to us in the sense that they just let us try things. We just started a YouTube channel, for example. So the kind of new media was only just starting. I mean, I didn't have an Instagram account when I started Man City. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I soon did after that, but Instagram wasn't even big then, So it was the cusp of social, of YouTube. We were doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff. We had an Inside City episode every week, which was at that stage, very different, that the whole behind the scenes, what's going on content. We had a City Today, what's going on in the club today program, and they let us try things. When I joined, Roberto Mancini was the manager, and he loved the media side. He really embraced it. So we were very lucky in that regard that he would just let us kind of do what we wanted.
Be in and around the squads.
Be in and around the squads. And at that time, the team were still based at Carrington. So not the City Football Academy as it is now. So, you've just gone over.
Carrington is literally a stone's throw away from United too, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The two
they're on the same lane near enough,
pretty much. Which is
a stone's insane, throw away. Considering they're like better rivals.
Yeah, it's mad how close they are. But yeah, I used to go to Carrington most days, just sit and have breakfast with the players and maybe the photographer and a couple of camera guys, and we great crack and great just great energy in the room, and the players just kind of got on board with what we were doing, and we were allowed to be really creative and kind of push the boat a wee bit, which was kind of the energy of the club at that time, which kind of helped. So it was a great time to kind of get the job, and I'll never I was actually driving to Ballymena, would you believe it, for a job. I can't remember what it was, when the guy Chris Bailey, who became my boss, rang me and he said, "You've got the job at Man City." And I was like, right, gosh, okay, now I have to actually move to Manchester. It was kind of one of those, goodness, what do you do? You're kind of, I've lived away before, like I said, in America and things like that, but you know that this is a big move and a big career move, and one that means leaving family and friends behind and kind of going. I didn't know loads of people. I knew a few people in Manchester, but not massively.
Yeah.
So you have to take that leap, but it was too good an opportunity not to take. And genuinely, I had the best time there, and met some incredible people. That's people that I'm very close to. We all try to meet up once a year, and it was just an exceptional experience.
In terms of you being put into this new realm of professionalism and creativity, which you've just spoke about, like you have like a lease to kind of, okay, we want you to kind of start things from scratch. You're part of this new media crew who's going to go in, you're going to try and elevate the club, you're going to try and create content on a daily basis to promote the players, promote the inside of the club, and pretty much the rebranding of Manchester City at the time. What's that like from you going from playing Irish League football at the time to being around the best players on the planet? Because I think one of the City's first signings was Robinho.
Yeah.
He was popular for that, which was one of the maddest stories ever.
Yeah.
And then you have, as you touched on, the likes of Toure came in, Aguero, Tevez, Joe Hart signed, and you're sitting going, like, these are the biggest names in world football. And you're just this person who's got this job and gets to interview these people and have these fantastic relationships with.
Yeah. It was quite surreal. It was quite surreal. And the season I joined was the season Man City won their first Premier League title. So
partly down to the media.
Partly down to fantastic media.
Fantastic me. It was well documented that.
Exactly. And yeah, it was too. But I'd only just started, so it was kind of like I've just started.
Yeah.
I'd been over for a few games to work at a few games. But my first proper day at work was the Aguero 93-20 moment.
No way.
Yeah, that was my first proper day on the job.
Okay.
So when I got the job, I think it was around the March of that year. And when I was offered the job, it was the March, I think, of the 2011-12 season. At that stage, Manchester United were quite a few points ahead, if you remember, of Man City in the league. So I think they thought, right, we will have this gentle introduction of myself and another guy, Mark Booth, very good friend of mine, who's a massive Blue. We started the same day, at the same time.
Before you go any further, are you secretly happy that you've accepted this job at United, or 7, 8, 9 points at clear?
At that can't ask me that question, Julie. At that point, admittedly, yeah. I remember. Do you remember the game where Vincent Kompany scored the header?
Yeah.
Which was like, such a turning point around the April time of that year. Like, I remember that I remember, I'm gonna start working with Vinny, like, do you know what I mean? And I'm still thinking, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You'd like to score that header?
Raising deep inside.
Yeah.
Cool light.
Exactly. And Vincent actually went on to work very closely with Vincent, another great guy. Which is funny because at that point, I'm going like, to win the league. And obviously it went right down to the wire. So when I got the job, it was kind of nailed on, United are going to win the league. So I think the thought was, let's bring our new recruits in and gently introduce them to the Premier League and what we do here, what we do on a match day, the commentary side, the reporting side. I was first team reporter, so you kind of, get it in and around the players, things like that. And and then obviously, the kind of,
it escalates quite quickly.
Including Vinny's header. And all of a sudden we're in a situation where we're starting work at the most vital point of Manchester City's history as a club, bar potentially the Dick of 99 moment.
Yeah.
They're about to win their first Premier League title, and they're going, what do we do with these, two newbies? So we kind of just had to get in and muck in and, help out where we could. But it was a really surreal time. It was, I'd grown up as a football fan. I'd watched everything, consumed every bit of football media I could, which, in those days was quite limited in comparison to now. And then all of a sudden you're at the Etihad Stadium working for Manchester City when they're about to win the league for the first time.
Yeah.
The way it happened, obviously United thought they'd won it. The Aguero 93-20, he whips his shirt off. The rest is history.
Yeah.
But to be in the stadium for that moment of history, it actually they used to play it a lot at staff meetings and things, understandably,
Yeah.
And it's still, I think, just as a football fan, and, I love football history as well, and, the kind of social side of football and all that kind of thing. To have been there in the stadium at that moment, no matter who you support, I mean, it's just such an iconic moment.
Everything around it, it's the idea of Balotelli doing what he done beforehand.
Yeah.
The commentary.
Yeah.
I don't know who was in the commentary, but
Martin Tyler. Well, the famous lines of
the Aguero moment where
you'll never see the likes of this again.
And you're sitting going like everything's kind of leveled out to be this iconic moment.
Yeah.
And it always seems to kind of work itself into that frame.
Yeah, no,
and
totally.
You'll never forget it. Do you know?
No, never forget it. No matter I think who you support, or as I say, it was everything around it. And I remember that night then going to the party. The kind of like, and Aguero was running around in a big hat, and Mario Balotelli and Edin Dzeko and Joe Hart and James Milner and Michael Richards, Julian Lescott, and all these guys. And I'm just going like, I've just come over here and landed in the middle of all of this, like you don't know where to put yourself. But it was just an incredible time. And everybody was genuinely, and I mean this sincerely, so lovely and welcoming and warm. And, I can't say enough good things about the club. I really can't say enough good things. And like I say, relationships that last to this day, because it is a special club. It's done, incredible things with the women as well. It's paved the way there too, and just a lot of the things they've done that have been quite remarkable and done right. So listen, it was a great time, if a little surreal. And then as years go on, seasons pass by, and the next thing you're just down in Carrington having your breakfast with the players, and I'm not saying it's not a big deal, of course, but it just became very normal quite quickly. And I think that's probably testament to the players as well. Yeah,
well, they've obviously made the environment quite safe for you in terms of going in, and it wasn't like, oh, we're up here and people are down here. It obviously seems like they're very mellow in terms of how they approach their day and their livelihoods.
Again, I couldn't speak highly enough, of that group of players. They really looked out for you.
You were there for six
seasons, yeah.
How did that materialise over, obviously, you go in, everybody wants to win the debut season and win the title. Unfortunately, you were that type of person who gets to join up to one of the best times of Manchester City's history, but you're there for 6 seasons after. How does it materialise? You go away with players, you're on trips with players, you're doing content, you're doing different things, maybe pre-season tours, you're away like that. What's that like to be introduced to that sort of side of things too, where you're getting to travel to maybe away games, you're getting to Champions League, if all these things sort of materialise where you're saying, going, whoa, I'm now in the thick of it. Yeah,
just incredible, Johnny. Really, like I say, that's probably only with the benefit of hindsight and reflection that you realise how an incredible experience it was. You know, I do feel very lucky and very fortunate to have had it. I think my first pre-season tour was to China and Malaysia. So again, I wasn't that long in the job. And they were like, right, you know, you're going to China, you know, sort your passport and you get all that kind of organised. And again, just an incredible experience. We went out and played Arsenal at the Bird's Nest in Beijing. Staying in these like incredible hotels.
Yeah, everything's the best.
Everything's the best. I remember actually getting onto the flight and there's a, you know, glass of champagne sitting in my seat and I'm going, what, you know, like
looking around, is this someone trying to like stitch me up?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So it was very surreal. You know, certainly as a young kind of woman coming from Northern Ireland, you're thinking, my goodness, like this really is quite exceptional. The trips were incredible that, you know, I was in China, Australia, the States, you know, all over Europe, Vietnam. Oh, listen, there's just a number of incredible trips. And do you know what, Johnny? They were actually, for me, they were some of the best times because you were out of the week to week, you know, pressure of Premier League, getting to this game, getting to that game. Obviously every other week you're traveling around the country and it was nice to take the pressure off and go on a pre-season tour or a post-season tour and just spend time, you know, getting to know the players, creating some really good content. You know, we would get them on the golf course or, you know, whatever it was, that they were relaxed as well, you know, and at that time you got the best content, you know, during the season.
It's not as much of a show where you're rushing to get stuff done and it's probably similar questions or similar answers that you're getting, where you're actually able to see people materialize and be the humans that they are, and they get to have a wee bit of downtime. And that must be like so different to be like, oh, I'm just on a golf course playing X, Y, and Z with all these superstars. Like,
it was.
It's incredible to think of. Like,
it was great, you know. And generally, well, a lot of the players would have played golf, so you know, we would have generally gone to kind of resorts where there was a golf course, so you know they could take the pressure off, go out. So we used to go out and film with them, and you know, like set up a wee tournament, and you know, set up a darts tournament and table tennis. We table tennis as well. So we did all these kinds of things, and it was nice. Just like I say, to take the pressure off, and they're more themselves then as well. They're having the kind of crack between themselves. You know, you had the Argentines, you know, against the English boys or whatever it was, and people open up then. You know what I mean? People really open up, and we created some really good content. And you're visiting, you know, some great places as well. So you had that. Like we went to the New York Giants, for example, spent a day with the Giants, and you know, like it was funny. I was actually seeing, you know, our players and then, you know,
the
mountains. Like, you know, you're going like, this is, it's very different. But again, like we shot adverts in America, like just really unique experiences. We, Manchester City's sister club, New York City FC. It was founded 2013. We went out there and, you know, we lots of content with the MLS and, you know, like just that kind of side of it as well. Then later on in Australia, we travelled to Australia where they have their sister club there in Melbourne. And yeah, just like incredible experiences and such a global experience as well, you know, with the reach that Manchester City then began to have. So you saw the players out of their environments and into different environments as well, which was nice as well. But yeah, we had the best times. Like, and again, we'd such a good team. We had a very creative team, and I think even as a group of City TV, we had our best times when we were on the road and just coming up with things and trying things and
more so having a laugh.
Yeah, having a laugh. Maybe things not going right. I remember did an interview with Samir Nasri in a hotel room. A few of the boys would like just wired it up to try and make it look as good as it could be, because he wasn't a big one for interviews. So to have him was, you know, we're quite a big deal to sit down with him for half an hour. And we had it all wired up and whatever. And then one of the cameras falls off, or one of the lights falls off. You know, like just moments like that where you're gonna offer, you know, of all people and of all times.
Be with Samir.
Yeah, you had to be with Samir. But listen, we'd great times and great laughs. And then, you know, the players like Gail Clichy, for example, was a interest in DJing, so he'd maybe get the decks out, that night, and we'd do something around that. And, it just allowed people to kind of express themselves as well, which was a time again when all that off the pitch content was starting to take shape as well. And, players becoming, I suppose, their own brands and their own, people in that way. So it was a great time to explore a lot of that with a great group of players who really did look out for you, Like I was pregnant with my first daughter in 2014, when City won the league that year as well. Yeah, 2014. And I did the chairman's interview at the end of the season each year. And we did it in New York in 2013. I didn't do it in 2012, but did New York 2013. And in 2014, it was in Abu Dhabi. Now, this is May, and I'm due to give birth in the July. So there's only a number of weeks to go. And my boss said, I'd like you to go out and do the chairman's interview. And I thought, right, okay, that's fine, And away I went. And I was on the plane. Joe Hart's wife happened to be pregnant with their first child at the same time.
Okay.
So Joe comes down the plane and says, Nick, you're going up there to lie down, to look after yourself. And I said, no, I'm not going up to, sit beside, Manuel at the time, Manuel Pellegrini. And you know what I mean? I thought, no, I'm perfectly fine. He said, no. You're going up there. Go up and look after yourself, because I had the proper full recliner views. And I said, Joe, I'm not. He said, away you go. So they really did. That was the kind of feel of the team, and they really looked out for you. And I still call people like Joe friends, because that's just the way it was. They just looked out for you, and we really had that real bond, I suppose,
like a family sort of togetherness there.
Yeah. Very familial. Yeah, very familial. Even in our City TV team, we had that. Yeah, we're all in this to do the best we can do, but we want to have a bit of fun as well.
Before we move past you, obviously potentially leaving City at the time, I want to ask you one question. Which player over your course of the 6 years took you by surprise the most? Like, if you seen a signing coming in, you're like, oh, he's got X, Y, and Z, rumours around him being X, Y, and Z, this type of person, and completely shocked you.
As a person or a player?
As a person.
As a person?
Or as a player?
Or as a player? Well, I think as a player. Okay, two people spring to mind. My favourite two players to watch, actually, maybe I have three. Anyway, my favourite players to watch at Man City, David Silva.
Okay. Understandable.
Unbelievable. The magician. Like, correctly nicknamed, he was a magician. I mean, what a player. Kevin De Bruyne. Slightly different, but still ridiculous. And actually, I don't know. I loved watching Carlos Tevez.
Okay.
I just loved his energy. I loved the fact that he was like a little Rottweiler. He just never gave up, and he was here, there, and everywhere. Do you know what I mean? So maybe not the prettiest, not the David Silva, but I loved what he brought to a team. But so I would say, as a player, probably Kevin De Bruyne, because he was a wee bit of an unknown quantity when he came in. Kevin, actually, probably Kevin in both respects, because he was such a ridiculous talent. But there were a few question marks over Kevin when he came in, not from a Man City perspective, but just, from the football kind of, world. Has he got what it takes? And I know there were things in Belgium where some people thought he maybe didn't have it to the level and whatever. And then he came in, and I just remember thinking, my goodness, what a player, what an attitude, what a lovely guy, and great crack. Yeah. Do you know, he kind of had it all, He
has the package.
He has the package. Like, you could watch this guy all day, every day, but he was so humble. He was so down to earth, lovely family, and he was great crack. You could have a bit of a joke with Kevin, and he was quite a dry humour, so he was brilliant. So I think he probably surprised me as a player, because I didn't know, like, when I arrived at Man City, I knew what Sergio Aguero could do. Do you know what I mean? I knew what David Silva could do. But I think I didn't, I wasn't fully aware. I did his welcome interview when he arrived and he landed in. And I remember we were all really excited about this guy. Like, we were, we knew this was a big signing, and we knew that he could potentially have a huge impact. But I certainly didn't realise the impact that he would go on to have in that team. And again, as a person, he was just a lovely person, you know, a really likable guy, just the kind of guy next door, kind of, you know what I mean? Just a lovely guy. And personality wise, well, Kevin won, I think, like Michael Richards, big character, big personality.
He's so big in the media now, isn't he?
Yeah, it's great to see him go on and do what because he was just such a big, you know, he was always you can tell he's just a big ball of energy, you know, and a big bundle of energy, and a great guy, big laugh, big smile, you know, good fun. He was absolutely fantastic. He really was. And Johnny, sometimes it was a slow burn. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it was, you know, I think as players, they want to know that they can trust you. You know, they want to know that, like, at the end of the day, we're media, we're club media, but we're still media. So they want to know that, you know, they can build a relationship of trust where...
And they can say certain things.
Yeah, exactly.
Some things will be posted when they know about it, and other things will be kept.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and I think that's one of the things, you know, we did really well was build those relationships of trust. Like, I remember my boss, the Euros were 2012 Euros. And the players had all won the league. They were coming back, and he said, right, I want you to go in Carrington and sit in the reception and speak to every player as they come in. And I'm going, and what? Say what? You know, ask them how their Euros was, you know, get to know them, because you're going to have to go to China in a few weeks or a week or whatever it was. And I'd like you, before you get to China, to have a bit of a feel in them, to have a bit of a feel for who you are. So I remember going to sit in Carrington reception, and, you know, they're all coming back from their Premier League win and their Euros. And I'm going, hiya. How's it going? Sergio, you okay? Yeah, you know what I mean, Mario? Yeah, right, okay. And I remember thinking this must be quite weird for them too, because it is a personal thing that when you're in a club setting, your club media are very important. You know, they're very important, and the people are very important. So I remember those kind of early days, but that was one thing I really set out to do, was to make sure, A, that they know they can trust you, and B, that if you tell them something's going to take 5 minutes, but it's actually going to take half an hour, just tell them it's going to take half an hour.
Yeah. Footballers' advice straight on. Just be honest with them.
Just say, listen, it's going to take half an hour. It's Absolutely. You know, it's not 10 minutes. It's going to, and you'll be all right. And I kind of set that as a kind of, you know, way to go. And I think then that lasted the test of time, because it did allow me then to just, you know, text the guys and say, listen, can you do this? Can you do that? And they would always do it for you. Do you know what I mean? They would always good for you. They would always look out for you. But some big personalities, Johnny, like, I mean, some big personalities. Mario Balotelli was...
Just about to say.
You know.
And I wanted to move on a couple minutes ago, but this just came into my head. The man burnt down his house with fireworks. How do you deal with that from a media perspective? Because he was doing the craziest stuff. He was like... I think I remember thinking... There was something to do with like motorbikes or quads. He had built like a track in his back garden. And just him going like, how dangerous is this? Like, he's a world athlete. He's probably insurance up the hilt. And then the house situation with fireworks, and the top scenario where he takes the top off, and why always me? And you're saying going like, it must be a dream for certain media aspects, but as you guys, like, obviously incredible character to have around.
Yeah, no, great. And actually he was lovely, but he, you know, I wouldn't have known him overly well. He was only there for a short time before he moved on. You know, when I arrived, I think he left that January, I want to say. It was a short period of time anyway. And, but I remember, I think it was Barcelona away or Real Madrid away, and in the Champions League just before he went. And I remember having, you know, a conversation with him then and thinking, gosh, you know, there's more behind the antics, because he used to drive up to the training ground, you know, at Carrington. There was just a car park, but he would just drive up to the front door, just like, you know, drive the car, jump out the way around, you know. And, you know, you need kind of characters as well, as you say. But I remember that one conversation. I think it was either at the new camp or the Bernabeu, one of the two. And I remember thinking, oh, do you know what? There's definitely a lot more. And I think you found that, like I said to you, it wasn't a given that players would just relax. You had to kind of like build those relationships, work into them. But once they knew they could trust you. Once they knew you knew your stuff as well, and. You know, you knew the game and that kind of thing. It was they were great. You know, some some Greenhead, I went on to do a bit of work, individually for the likes of Joe Hart and Vincent Kompany and Micah Richards, Julie Lescott, and some of the females as well, Jill Scott, and so listen, you build those relationships, and then they last the test of time, really.
In terms of you finishing up your tenure at City, how does that come around, and what's the main reasons for coming home?
Family.
Yeah.
Really, Johnny, yeah, family and kids, being the kind of main part of that. I have 2 daughters, and I think you'll know yourself, once the kids come along, you're
limited in a way.
Yeah, you're limited. I was going to put it slightly nicer, Johnny.
Mine's only 9 months, 10 months now, but limited.
Brilliant.
It's probably the best.
Brilliant. Yeah, your world changes. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden they just become number one. You know what I mean? They are number one. And, I had a fantastic career, and it was a very hard decision. And I remember one of my very good friends and became my line manager saying to me, don't leave, don't just, we'd kids as well, 3 kids he had. And he said, like, don't go. And I just, I was like, I know, but I know I wanted to deep down, I wanted my kids to kind of know my parents and stuff. And really, to be honest with you, if I'm being open and honest, Johnny, that's really at the heart of it.
Yeah.
I wanted that kind of for them. And logistically, it does become more difficult as well, as you say. I mean, traveling to, Barcelona away, Real Madrid away, Bayern Munich away, I'd done it all, but it becomes quite difficult when you've, 2 kids in the mix, and you want to be fair to them as well. So yeah, it was a really hard decision. Pep had just joined, and that whole thing was going on, and I loved Pep Guardiola growing up, and just in terms of a manager, obviously, I think any football fan is just kind of fascinated by him in a way. So he had just joined, with that whole momentum. The women were starting to do really well. Like I say, we Jill Scott, Steph Houghton, Lizzie Christensen, Karen Bardsley, brilliant women's team. That was all taken off. And I loved my job. I absolutely loved my job. And I found it a really difficult decision. But something in me just innately in my gut knew you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to be hard, because I knew that coming back home, the opportunities were going to be much more limited.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was going to have to, again, carve a path with 2 kids. Not my own anymore. No, not my own. But, I knew I was going to have to carve that path. But I knew that I knew I loved football.
Yeah.
I knew I loved my job. But my kids have to come first.
Yeah.
And I know that if I do that, everything's going to work out. You know what I mean? I believe that. I believe this will work out, because you go with that, you can't go wrong, I would think. And thank God it did.
It has.
Yeah. So I started speaking to the BBC while still over there. And in the transition, I had a freelance period where I was like in a bit of transition, but Man City were so good to me. And again, this is why I just can't say enough good things. Yeah. Even having made that decision to leave as a full-time member of staff, they were so good to me. They gave me a lot of freelance work. So I continued to do a lot for them in that period. And then I started to work for BBC Football and BBC Sport in Salford. So I kind of bridged that gap. And then I started speaking to the BBC back at home. So it was difficult. I think, and again, there's probably another whole podcast in this, but I think particularly as a woman in this area and in this kind of field, you're going to have to make big decisions at times. And my decision was led by my kids and my family. And thankfully that's worked out, that I was able to come home and translate then that experience, to media and football and life here, which is great. But it's not easy. It's not easy. No. You've got to really consider all things, but, I've no regrets at all. And I think, I believe it's been the right thing. And, I can tell Sophie that she's been on pre-season tour with, Yaya Toure and co. Because she did actually, when I went back, and again, there's probably a whole other podcast in this, but when I went back to work after having my first daughter, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard no matter what, and being away, I went to, I think my first trip away was to Barcelona away in the Champions League. And then I went to Abu Dhabi for the chairman's interview in the May, I think. So he was about to turn 1. So the pre-season trip that year was to Australia, which was amazing because Melbourne City FC was, being established and things. But I'm now a mother. I've got a baby here. I'm still breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And I'm going, how do I make all of this work?
This work, yeah.
So, we found a way that Sophie, came to Australia.
Nice.
On the pre-season tour and managed to kind of, do all of that. But I think it's something that, we really need to promote for women, that, like I said, about having experienced players in the game, having experienced women in the media, in sports media, again, is really, I think, really important. Do you know what I mean, Johnny? Because it means then, when these challenges come up, maybe for younger, women and girls below me, I can maybe say, listen, I get it. I get that. And I can help you find a way.
Well, you're the front runner in all this, if I'm going to be completely honest. You're not the flagship, but you're the first person to really stamp your authority on terms of coming back into the country, being part of sport and media as a female presenter, as a female host, a podcaster. You do everything.
Yeah.
But in terms of people looking from the outside in, you're probably the female with the household name in terms of sport in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, I think, like I say, it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah.
Like, it has been an incredible journey. And like I say, sometimes I look back and think, oh my goodness, I'm so thankful and appreciative for what I've done in my career. But there have been times when it has been tricky. I remember, telling my boss I was going to have my first daughter, and we planned a trip to America that summer for pre-season tour, and I know I can't go on this trip.
Yeah.
And we'd had a post-season trip to America that year, the previous year, 2013. We had an amazing post-season trip to New York, and I mean amazing. It was 5 days. We played Chelsea at Yankee Stadium. We played Chelsea again in St. Louis. And then in and around that, there was just a number of really exciting things happening around New York City FC and the MLS, and filming an advert and all of these amazing things. And I had loved it. And it was a time I felt I'd really, one of the, after a trip or after a game or after anything, and you go, I know I did well. I know
Yes.
that was it. Not just me, but our team. I just thought we did really well. And this is starting to get very exciting. The next thing, we plan a pre-season tour to America. But I know I can't go, but I'm in meetings going, I can't say yet, but I know I can't go because I'm going to have a baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a big thing. Do you know what I mean? Especially when you feel like you're doing really well in your career, but
and you don't want that trajectory to change.
Yeah.
It's just perfect at the minute.
That's it. It's all going really well. I feel I'm really part of this club now. I've been here for a few seasons. I know that the content we're creating is really good. The team are brilliant, and you have to go, right. But I actually, I'm going to have a baby, and I'm going to become a mother, and that's going to change. And I remember that feeling of really, oh my goodness. But again, the club were great. My boss was great. He was like, why are you so worried? And I was like, I'm not worried. I just,
Yeah.
And then you come back, and then I'm going off to Australia on a pre-season tour with an almost 1-year-old. And that's different. Life is different. And I think the more we can encourage women to come back, to stay there, to support them in that journey, the better for all of us, for everyone, and like I say, it's a huge thing for me with hopefully, helping women through that, because they're different times, you know what I mean? But I would like to think that you can still keep it all going, and you can still make it all happen. You might drop a few balls along the way, but you can do it.
But that's testament to you as a person. That's also a testament to your ambition and your drive and how you want to progress your career further in terms of the media and how you're doing it. And it's probably, as I say, it's testament to how things have been going, because you've came back, you've been able to create a pathway for yourself in the BBC. As we've touched on before, you were at the Euros, you were with your friends at the Euros. On a different aspect, you weren't playing, but you were there to cover it all. And you were probably, I don't know really the best word to say this, but you're probably enjoying the fact that you're able to see other people who you've grew up with achieving their goals, as long as you're being there at the same time. So
yeah,
it's been different, but it's also very rewarding.
Oh, 100%. And you mentioned the Euros in 2022. I'd come back home. At that stage, I'd full-time job with the BBC, and I covered the Women's Euros, the whole tournament, the whole build-up, the amazing qualification process. That match against Ukraine at Seaview, which, I'll never forget when they qualified. And then to go to England for the Euros. And like you mentioned, girls I grew up playing with or against, Marissa Callaghan. I know I've mentioned just Julie Nelson, Ashley Hutton, who I played with for a number of years at Northland Raiders, who scored a massive goal in the qualification process. And so then to go over to England and to be reporting on these girls that I once shared the pitch with, who were getting there, fulfilling their dream. And, to watch that and to be lucky enough and fortunate enough to be part of that as well with them was so special. It is one of my, I just feel so fortunate to experience that with them in my own way through the media. But I was so proud of them, and not to sound patronising, but I just was so proud of what they'd achieved, because I know the work that they put in. I know the grind. These are one club women, some of them, just week in, week out, giving everything to their club and to Northern Ireland as well. And, to watch that all unfold and go over to England and see them playing that game against England was just incredible. When they went over to the fans at the end, the atmosphere, it was like a full circle moment, Johnny. Do you know what I mean? It was a full circle moment. And it's something I'll never forget in my career. And it really felt all those tough decisions to leave Man City, to step away from that, to carve out again, a way of kind of coming home, and it just all felt worth it. And, like I say, I was just so delighted for the girls to get that opportunity. Some of them towards the latter stages of their career. So it really was, it was so special. So it's up there with anything else that I've done, you know what I mean? And, that I've experienced and witnessed in the game. It's up there,
Just before we wrap up, but I want to talk to you about what the future holds. So what is,
where's your crystal ball? Have you got a crystal ball?
Just a wee back here. But what is it looking for you? Is it on the hope that you're with the BBC for a long, long time and you're able to help promote just as you've been doing and continuing that on, or is there something more up your sleeve? Do you want to maybe go back to doing stuff in different countries, or what's on the cards, do you think?
Big question.
It is. It's probably put you on the spot, which I didn't really mean to.
Gosh, Johnny, I don't know. I think I'm very, very happy where I'm at the moment. I love the fact that I still work in football and in sports media. I love the fact that my girls now, my daughters are now 11 and 8, and I love the fact that they kind of understand a bit what I do. They're not football fans. Okay. They're not footballers. I'm getting a bit of my mum's non-Irish dancing kind of, but they love their sport. They're both massive about gymnastics.
Okay.
So I love learning about that with them. They give it so much. They really, really love it. I'm so proud of them. I love that they, like I say, they understand my career a little more now. Well, listen, they're way ahead of me. Sure, they could do my job.
Yeah, they're on every sort of platform.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm very happy where I am at the moment. I love football. It has been my absolute number one love from I was a little girl. And the fact that I can sit here as a slightly older woman and say that I still work in the game that I love, and I love and the industry that I love, I'm just very happy with that. There's things I really still feel I would love to do.
Okay.
I've lots of probably itches I want to scratch. Okay. But it's trying to make sure that I do that along with being the best mum that I can be as well. And like I say, I remember reading something about life being, not to get too philosophical here, but being like a 360. If you can try and make it as much 360 as you can, so your work and your life, don't necessarily have to be completely separate. Do you know what I mean? So I try to integrate where I can. So, and I think that's the lovely thing, you know, if you can do it. So bring my girls to work with me or anything, but they get to understand what mummy does, and, you know, they see what that is.
They're on the journey with you.
They're on the journey with me. I think that's really important. I think, so I want to keep going in that trajectory and kind of, you know, integrate all of that. But I suppose, and I'm sure you find this yourself as a footballer, Johnny, in the sport, you know, if you're ambitious, and you've things you still want to do. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of things that I still want to do. So hopefully, you know, I've things ahead that will help me kind of, you know, get there.
Move in there without saying too much.
Move in there, yeah, and do things that I still would like to do. But I am massively passionate about football. Male and female. I'm massively passionate, obviously, about the women's game and the girls' game as well. But I'm also massively passionate about, you know, women and men together, girls and boys, you know, growing that as well. Because I do think, certainly through my career and my experience, when we all work together, we produce some great things. Yeah, you know,
100%.
You know, there were times in the Premier League where I would have gone to a game at sticks out QPR, Watford, and I would have been the only female in the press room, you know. And I'm not saying you had to prove your worth or maybe to prove that you knew football. Do you know what I mean? But there was that kind of, you know, I know what I'm not saying what I'm talking about, but, you know, I do know the game and stuff as well. I think that's changing, and I think, you know, we can see that is changing, and I think the more we become, you know,
united in all aspects of football, it'll be more beneficial.
I think so. I think there's loads to gain from both, you know, from both. But yes, to answer your question, watch this space.
Good. That's a good way to end it. Without saying too much, it's a great way to end it.
No, plenty to look forward to, and thank you for having me.
Well, listen, thank you. As I say, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's lovely to delve into the career. I've known you for quite a long time now, and it's nice that I get to sit down and have the conversations with the people that I'm very interested in, and obviously interested in your career. So it's been an absolute pleasure. But we finish on hugs.
Oh, listen, I'm a hugger. Bring it in. Thanks very so much. Thanks for that.
Oh. Join us next week on the On the Spot Football podcast for yet another fantastic guest. Next week's guest will be an old legend who will be pulling the whistle out and hopefully telling us a lot of stories that's went on in his career. See you soon.